Panic rarely begins as the event itself, it begins with your signature beneath the first story your mind proposes. The email arrives without a greeting. The price drops, the call isn't returned, the message sits on red, and instantly the mind drafts meaning that feels like a fact. This is a catastrophe. This is an insult. This is the start of a slide I won't be able to stop. The Stoic move is not denial, it is refusing to co-sign untested narratives. You pause before agreeing with your first interpretation, and you split reality along the one seam that constantly reduces suffering. What is yours to govern and what is not? That split is the lever. One end anchors into control. Attention, speech, choices, standards, the next smallest act. And the other end anchors in assent, the gatekeeper that decides which impressions get to steer your hands. Use both ends, and what looked like fate becomes workable. Picture a morning, already humming with requests. Your screen shouts numbers and names, and you can feel your pulse trying to match a rhythm that isn't yours. The first impulse is performance. Reply fast to look strong. Promise more to feel safe. Sprint to every alarm so no one can accuse you of neglect. But speed without sovereignty is not strength, it's theater. Control is local. It never lives in the stock ticker. A stranger's opinion, the weather, your partner's mood, or a boss delay. It lives inside the radius of your choices. You can choose what to attend at first, how to speak, whether to take the next smallest step that improves the corner of the situation you actually hold. The moment you relocate attention from outputs to inputs, panic starts losing oxygen. The world may remain loud, but your task list grows quiet and specific. There is a micro routine that keeps the day from renting your mind by the hour. When the surge hits, give yourself 60 seconds that no one else can touch. Name the event in one sentence, free of adjectives, as if a camera were recording it. Shipment delayed 48 hours. Client asked for revision. Partner hasn't replied. And distinguish, without drama, what sits under your governance and what does not. You cannot command kind to reverse or another person to be different. You can command your next act. Choose one action, small and observable, that improves the part you govern. Call and offer 2 mitigation opinions. Draft a revision plan. Close the tab and move the document forward. Stand up and walk while you think instead of scrolling. Execute while your feelings are still giving speeches. This is not heroism, it's hygiene. Assent is quieter and harder. Control concerns levers you can see. Assent concerns sentences you cannot. An impression knocks and asks for the keys to your attention. You are under no obligation to be rude, but you do have to be a doorman. Label the visitor. Fear, flattery, pride, envy, catastrophe, possibility. The instant you give an impression its name, its claim to be the whole truth weakens. Then you frame it with a simple choice the Stoics carried like a pocket tool. Is this a fact, an interpretation, or a prediction? Facts survive cross-examination. Interpretations are opinions in costume. Predictions are guesses with a drumbeat. You are allowed to hold all three lightly, and you are obliged to act only on the fact that a child could verify. You will not eliminate error by doing this, but you will stop volunteering for avoidable pain. Consider the quarrel that has not yet happened, the one you rehearse while soap runs down your forearms, because a colleague's message arrived curt and bare. The impression lands with teeth. Disrespect. If you can sign it, you will carry that heat into the day and fulfill your own prophecy. Or you can test it. Fact. 5 words, no greeting. Interpretation. They are meant to belittle me. Prediction. This relationship is deteriorating. Now act on the smallest fact that resolves ambiguity without war. Ask for clarity on the requirement. Request 2 bullet points that define done. Offer a draft by noon and divide corrections and track changes. If disrespect is real, it will reveal itself again under the light of specifics. If it was only your insecurity wearing armor, the interaction will recalibrate without leaving shrapnel lodged in the next 3 meetings.
The same lever steadies you when the event is genuinely bad. The bid fails. The quarter misses. The test result tightens your horizon. You are allowed to hurt. Stoicism does not cancel grief, it keeps grief from drafting you into foolishness. Tell the truth about what is gone and what remains. Shorten the plan to what you can lift with the muscles you still have. Remove, just for today, the non-essential frictions, arguments about blame, doom scrolling, performative outrage that would turn loss into lifestyle. Call the person whose steadiness you trust and say one sentence without theater: here is what happened, here is my next move. You are not asking for rescue. You are locking your posture to the part of the ship you can still steer. Practice matters because adrenaline prefers improvisation. In the morning, before you outsource your mood, write one line you intend to prove that sits entirely inside your control. I will send the difficult draft. I will keep my tongue clean in conflict. I will do 90 minutes of deep work without a phone in the room. Keep the sentence where your hand can see it. When the world throws a hook, run the label and frame sequence aloud if you must. Hearing your own voice ask what part is fact often slows the flood long enough to choose. At night, close the ledger by naming one urge you declined and one action you took. You are not performing for a crowd. You are training a nervous system to trust you. When abstractions tire you, use a picture. There is a door with two locks. The first law is control. Keep your keys. Stop jamming them into locks that were never yours. The second lock is assent. Decide who enters your head and for how long. Most intruders cannot pick both locks. A crisis can rattle the house, but it tends to pass if you refuse to invite it to sleep on the couch and feed it your attention. This is why the old books read less like magic shows and more like cleaning manuals. Less flash, more mops. Remove what you cannot govern from the center of your day. Refuse to house thoughts that have not passed inspection. What remains is smaller than your fantasies and larger than your excuses. Beware the urge to romanticize this. You do not need a new identity, a motto in Latin, or an audience applauding your hardness. The lever is humble work that saves you from expensive mistakes. It blocks the message you want to send for relief but would regret by dinner. It stops arguments with markets, partners, and relatives about what they are not obligated to provide. It saves afternoons otherwise wasted prosecuting people for not being the characters you drafted to heal your loneliness. It returns you to the modest sovereignty of the next controllable inch. It is not dramatic. It is honest, repeatable, and available to tired people who still want to respect themselves at night. You will forget. You will sign a story you did not test and spend an hour paying for it. You will grab for a lever that isn't yours and feel the humiliating slip of no traction. Tuition, not a ticket. Pay it by practicing immediately. Name the very next impression and place it in the waiting room. Move 1 inch where your effort still changes something. If an apology is owed, pay it without bargaining. If a boundary is overdue, install it without venom. If rest is the wisest action, take it without calling yourself weak. The mind loves drama. Dignity loves sequence. Name, frame, move. In the end, the discipline reduces to a sentence small enough to carry everywhere. I will govern what is mine and test what I think before I let it steer me. Whisper it in crowded rooms. Write it on a card. Put it above the sink. Repeat it until the same world you woke into feels less hostile. Not because fate softened, but because you stopped negotiating with it on terms that always left you smaller. Problems that used to colonize whole weeks become edges. You can round with a tool you own. You will still lose, still hurt, still fail, still grieve. But you will stop donating power on top of the price you already paid. And that is the kind of progress that compounds quietly until other people call it luck. Blame is a sedative. It numbs the sting of consequence by moving the bruise to someone else's hand. And in the moment, it feels like relief because indignation is warmer than uncertainty. But sedation is not healing, and the cost is agency. Each time you rehearse why the delay belonged to the client, why the mood belonged to the weather, why the drift belonged to the algorithm, you surrender the only lever you can reliably pull, the next act you control. Radical responsibility is not a verdict on yesterday. It is a jurisdiction over today. It does not ask you to confess to crimes you didn't commit or to pretend malice where there was chance. It asks you to stop outsourcing the first move. When the mind reaches for exoneration like a blanket, fold it and put it back on the shelf. Say the plain sentence that restores authority, regardless of blame. The response is mine. Authority becomes real when it leaves your mouth and enters your calendar. Time is not an arena where you watch fate perform, it is a material you shape. People talk about priorities as if they live somewhere outside of ours, as if values will impose themselves when life finally slows down. Life does not slow down. It accelerates toward those who look like they can carry it. To govern time, treat the day like a workshop with stations, not like a party with rooms. You are not trying to be busy. You are trying to be sovereign. Sovereignty appears when hours are shaped by virtue rather than appetite. This is the difference between a schedule that flatters identity. I'm a hustler, I'm spontaneous, I'm a helper, and a schedule that trains character. Courage is time spent on the conversations and decisions that could sting. Justice is time spent honoring commitments to others without theater and to yourself without negotiation. Temperance is time spent reducing excess input and appetite so your judgment can breathe. Wisdom is time spent reading, thinking, and writing until your first drafts become less naive. When you arrange your hours by these beams, the house holds in wind. Begin where pain is loudest, the sense that the day keeps getting stolen. The theft is rarely grand. It is an aggregation of small leaks that feel harmless. There is only one cure that works, and it begins with humiliation in the best sense. A 24-hour audit written in language so plain it can embarrass you into accuracy. Ink the day from wake to sleep, naming actions as a camera would see them. Do not call scrolling research, or gossip bonding, or procrastination recovery. Call it what it was, and let the page show you the trail you actually walked. When the page is full, circle the blocks that grew a virtue and strike through the ones that fed your worst rehearsals. Do not sermonize. Do not perform repentance. Look at the ratios and decide like a builder which beams need weight tomorrow. Weight enters the plan through the simplest mechanism you will ever ignore, because it is not dramatic. Value blocks set in stone before the world is awake enough to steal them. Choose one block for courage, one for justice, one for temperance, one for wisdom, spread across the day according to the season you live in. If mornings are your one clear field, plant the most fragile work there and guard it like a vault. If evenings are the only quiet window, protect them from sugar, alcohol, and screens that eat the hour you swore would be yours. A value block is not a mood, it is a vow. It has a start and a stop, a location and a tool, a verb and a noun. You do not attend it to feel like someone, you attend it to become someone. The instrument that keeps the engine from flooding is the event interpretations action sequence. It is simple enough to use while your hands shake. Something happens and the body starts to write a play about it. Write 3 short lines instead. On the first line, record the event in 10 words or fewer without adjectives. On the second, catch the interpretation your mind shouted. On the third, choose one action you can complete in the next 15 minutes that either shrinks damage or grows value within your control. Then take the action before the committee in your head reconvenes. Returning to this sequence is not denial, it is maintenance. It is how you refuse to spend the afternoon suing the weather while your work rusts. People often confuse agency with volume. They raise their voice, expand their commitments, and attempt to outshout uncertainty. Agency is quieter. It is measured by the number of decisions you make on principle rather than on impulse. It is measured by how quickly you return to the plan when you wobble. It is measured by the distance between the sentence you wrote in the morning and the reality you can point to at night. When you miss, you do not theatricalize failure, you prune friction. If you break the time block you swore to protect, you do not invent a new identity at dinner. Sovereignty grows from small, unglamorous edits repeated until boredom replaces heroics. Ownership without excuses also means refusing to mortgage your hours to other people's emergencies that are born from their neglect. You are allowed to be helpful without being harvestable. People will bring you fires to feel less alone in their chaos. Compassion listens. Coherence sets terms. Ask what decision is needed and by when. Ask who owns the outcome and how your role fits without dissolving your own. Offer a clear slice you can deliver without breaking your blocks or decline without apology. The man who protects his hours while remaining courteous does more for the world than the man who burns his hours to look indispensable and then resents everyone for letting him. It is easy to proclaim this in a vacuum and much harder when grief, illness, or market shock shortens your reach. In those seasons, sovereignty scales down rather than disappearing. The blocks shrink to the smallest units that still respect the beam. Courage might be sending the one email that preserves the relationship. Justice might be keeping the promise to walk with a parent or to read to a child even when the report isn't finished. Temperance might be going to bed instead of arguing with people who cannot return you to sleep. Wisdom might be 2 pages slowly read with a pencil because your attention will not suffer a chapter. The exercise of agency during constraint is what prevents hardship from rewriting your character in its image. There is a sentence that will expose the lies you tell yourself about time. Say it whenever your mouth forms the old surrender. It is not a priority for me right now. Here is what is. If that second clause dies in your throat, you do not have a time problem, you have a hierarchy problem. Hierarchy is not cruel. It is merciful. It protects you from spending golden hours on thin tasks. It protects the people you love from living with the version of you who is always almost present because you keep rescuing your reputation in rooms that do not matter. It protects your future self from inheriting a life full of polite debris you never had the nerve to refuse. Do not confuse this with a campaign against leisure. Rest that restores judgment is not indulgence, it is ethics. But much of what you call rest is anesthesia, inputs that numb you today and invoice you tomorrow. If you wake more brittle, you did not rest. If you return more envious, you did not rest. If you need 2 more sessions tomorrow to recover from tonight, you did not rest. Rest appears on the page as a block that defends your standards, not as a hole where your standards fall through the floor. You will know it worked because you will choose better without gritting your teeth. All of this collapses without speech that matches it. Guard your tongue from the theater of busyness. Speak in verbs and nouns that a tired person could execute. No one cares that you are slammed. They care whether you keep your word. No one needs to hear that you are grinding. They need a deliverable they can use. The person most harmed by your inflated language is you, because the nervous system learns to accept noise as proof of work. Replace announcement with proof. Replace exaggeration with timestamps. Replace someday with the first 15 minutes on the calendar. Precision will make you look less grand and feel more free. Time sovereignty does not make you invincible. It makes you accurate. Accuracy compounds into trust. Trust with yourself becomes the current that carries you when mood thins. Trust with others becomes the quiet reputation that gets you chosen when stakes rise, because your name signals decisions rather than drama. That is what the old philosophers were building when they wrote about agency as if it were a virtue. It isn't a swagger. It's a practice that lets you meet your eyes at night without a closing argument. If this is sharpening your edge, stay close and keep building. There's more to turn strength from posture into practice, and the next step belongs in your morning. The sentence that keeps most men small arrives dressed as humility. This is just who I am. It sounds honest, like a report filed by a neutral observer, but it is often a closing argument delivered by fear. A label is easier to defend than a standard. If you call yourself impatient, you are spared the awkward pause that honesty requires. If you call yourself a night owl, you are excused from the hours when deep work comes easier. If you call yourself unlucky, you are protected from the humiliation of a clean audit. Stoic practice begins by separating essence from rehearsal. Essence is the rational faculty that can notice an impression, suspend assent, and choose. Rehearsal is the groove carved by yesterday's choices. When you say you are a certain way, you are almost always describing grooves, not essence. Grooves feel like gravity because you have skated them for years. Training is what cuts new channels. You do not become someone else by proclamation, you become someone else by repetition. The nervous system respects evidence more than slogans, and evidence is a behavior repeated across contexts until prediction changes sides. You can choose that behavior today without a ceremony. Start smaller than pride wants, and more consistently than novelty allows. When the old label rises, let it be the cue for a counteract that is embarrassingly modest. The impatient person asks one clarifying question before offering a solution. The avoidant person makes the first phone call while the hand still shakes. The disorganized person ends the day by writing the first verb and noun for the morning's opening move and staging the tool they will need where their eyes cannot miss it. Each act is too small to impress anyone. It is big enough to weaken the old groove, and it is repeatable under bad weather. Authenticity becomes a trap when it is used to sanctify untrained impulse. There is a version of the word that means honest and another that means unedited. The second is adolescent. The Stoic cares about honesty, which is measured not by whether you broadcast everything you feel, but by whether your behavior matches your values when feeling is inconvenient. The temptation to hide behind authenticity peaks where growth begins, because new behavior feels like costume. The costume becomes clothing when the act is performed enough times that your predictions update and your posture no longer fights the movement. You do not lie by acting better than your archive. You tell the truth about the future you are building. If identity is training, discomfort is the gym. Very little that matters strengthens without strain. You can wait for life to assign difficulty on a schedule you cannot see, or you can install it in small controlled doses that raise your tolerance before the storm. Voluntary discomfort is not an aesthetic, it is a logistics plan for your nervous system. When you choose a little cold, a little hunger, a harder conversation, a harder paragraph, a simpler meal, a slower evening, you are teaching your body that it can survive the first 15 minutes without obeying the first voice. That lesson is worth more than any line you will post later about grit. The point is not self-harm or theatrics, it is range. Range is what keeps you from mistaking inconvenience for injury and from calling ordinary friction a crisis. There is a rhythm to chosen difficulty that prevents it from becoming vanity. You put weight where your character is light and ease where your character is inflamed. If you are all speed and no patience, discomfort looks like finishing the draft slowly and cleanly, instead of shipping a mess for applause. If you are all patience and no edge, discomfort looks like making the ass before you feel ready and letting the silence carry its own weight. If you worship comfort in the body, discomfort looks like the first 10 minutes of movement when you would rather negotiate with your chair. If you worship comfort in the mind, discomfort looks like reading with a pencil instead of skimming for quotes to perform later. The aim is not to suffer. The aim is to reduce the number of times life has to use a hammer to teach you what a gentle repetition could have taught you last month. Language does half the work. Replace the label that collapses possibility with a sentence that names trajectory. That's who I've been becomes here is who I am training to be. Training implies a program, not a mood. Programs lead you on calendars, not in captions. The calendar holds you when motivation refuses to attend. When the hour arrives, you do the rep in front of you. It might be the one conversation that could shrink a week of friction, the one page that would remove guesswork from tomorrow, the one lift that would make the afternoon less brittle, the one refusal that would save you from explaining yourself to people who benefit from your confusion. The rep never looks like a breakthrough while you are doing it. Breakthroughs get edited in the retelling. In real time, there is only the act and the agreement you kept. If, then, plans inoculate you against surges. You do not need complexity. You need a script that will still run when adrenaline shortens your sentences. If the voice rises, then inhale to the nose and exhale longer than you inhaled and ask one question. If I reach for the feed, then I reach for the notebook first and write the one line I want the day to prove. If I hear myself say, "That's just how I am," then I restate it as that is how I have been and perform the smallest contradictory behavior within 60 seconds. The plan is not romance. It is a guardrail that stops you from building new dents in a curve you are trying to straighten. Voluntary discomfort also includes subtraction. The easiest difficulty to choose is often the refusal of an easy reward. Sugar promises focus and leaves a bill. Alcohol promises ease and invoices tomorrow's judgment. Outrage promises clarity and rents your attention to people who monetize your cortisol. Pornography, gossip, endless novelty, and the curated lives of strangers all offer stimulation that erodes the very capacity you need most when hardship arrives: the ability to hold a steady line through the first wave of feeling. Temperance is not Puritanism. It is energy management. You can still celebrate and enjoy, but you choose days and doses, so your future self does not spend his mornings patching holes you drilled the night before in the name of relief. Discomfort is easier to endure when it belongs to a story larger than mood. Tie it to the virtues you claim to admire. Courage is not a poster. It is paying the discomfort tax on acts that could sting but are correct. Justice is not a slogan. It is bearing the discomfort of telling the truth gently when silence would protect you. Temperance is not a diet. It is bearing the discomfort of leaving pleasure on the table so your standards stay funded. Wisdom is not a quote. It is bearing the discomfort of changing your mind when better facts appear. When the act is anchored in a virtue, you stop negotiating with comfort as if comfort were a god. Comfort becomes a guest who leaves at a decent hour. Expect resistance from the parts of you that have been fed by the old grooves. They will call the new posture fake, cruel, extreme, joyless. You need not argue. Answer with consistency. Resistance loses its witnesses when results accumulate. The results are not flamboyant. You will notice that you apologize less for storms you stirred, that your work becomes usable to other people, that your sleep deepens because your mouth stayed clean, that your relationships simplify because you stop trading self-respect for a little closeness. The world does not always reward this quickly. That is fine. You are not buying outcomes, you are buying range. There is a moment when identity as training stops feeling like a hack and begins feeling like home. It arrives on an ordinary afternoon when something triggers the old sentence and you answer with the new act before remembering that you used to do it differently. The pride that follows is quiet and heavy. You earned it in private by making unglamorous traits that stacked into a shape you can stand inside. Do not let praise pull you into exhibition, because exhibition replaces training with performance, and performance steals energy from the work that built you. The right people will notice without being prompted. More importantly, you will notice without needing to broadcast. If you want a single test to run when labels get loud and comfort campaigns for office, ask which choice will let you respect yourself tonight. Not which choice will win an argument with a ghost. Not which will harvest the most hearts from strangers. Not which will prevent anyone from misunderstanding you for a day. Respect is stubbornly local. It lives in whether you kept a promise that only you could verify, whether you stepped toward the truth when retreat would have granted peace, whether you refuse to bankrupt tomorrow for the warmth of now. String enough of these evenings together, and the person you are training to be stops feeling like a project and starts feeling like a man. Now some exciting news. Our channel now offers a members club. By joining it, you'll unlock exclusive benefits, deeper content dives, and personal insights. Join us on this journey, and let's build a meaningful life together. And I also humbly ask you to leave a comment, as it helps my channel immensely. If you do not know what to comment, just write "better every day," so I know you reached this far. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Also, I've linked some books on Stoicism that helped me become the man I am today and will also help you achieve a Stoic mindset. Strength collapses quietly, not in the dramatic failures strangers gossip about, but in the unremarkable leaks of attention and appetite that you excuse because they are common. You call it catching up, and it becomes an evening you can't remember. You call it taking the edge off, and it becomes a fog that shortens tomorrow's fuse. You call it staying informed, and it becomes a pipeline of outrage, turning your mind into a megaphone for other people's incentives. Temperance is the discipline that plugs those leaks. It does not ask you to live small, it asks you to live clean. Clean attention is not sterile, it is selective. Clean appetite is not joyless, it is governed. And because the world will always offer more inputs and indulgences than your judgment can carry, temperance is the guard at the door who cares about your tomorrow more than your craving right now. Begin with attention, because appetite follows it. Your mind is a field, and whatever you plant grows, while whatever you let drift seeds itself. You already know this. When the wrong song won't leave your mouth, the same mechanism runs deeper when you spend an hour touring curated fragments and then attempt to sit with a hard paragraph. The fragments cling. They were engineered to cling. You cannot build a life on the same diet that keeps you scrolling. The correction is not rage at technology. It is the quiet refusal to feed yourself inputs that make you weak. Remove one stream of novelty and you will hear something you haven't heard in a while, the sound of your own priorities. That sound is fragile at first and embarrassingly quiet compared to the drums of constant reaction, but it tells you where to point your day before the market hires your nervous system to sell its wares. Temperance does not eliminate pleasure, it changes the order of operations. Pleasure without prior selection erodes respect because it trains you to obey the first warm thing. Pleasure chosen after principle becomes fuel, not leash. A simple rule protects you when the evening invites self-betrayal. Earn the softness. Move the body until it breaks a small sweat. Put a brick in the thing you build. Keep your word to one person who counts. Then enjoy the glass or the show or the meal with both hands and no disguise. The same event converts from anesthesia to celebration because you stop using it to hide from the bill you owed yourself. You can feel the difference at night. Anesthesia leaves sediment, irritability, excuse-making, a subtle self-contempt. Celebration leaves space, gratitude, calm, a readiness to sleep, and a clearer appetite in the morning. Guardrails say more dignity than declarations. If sugar convinces you that 2 minutes from now is someone else's problem, stage your kitchen like you respect the next day's judgment. If alcohol turns your honesty into a speech you'll pay for, decide where and when it enters your willik the way a pilot decides fuel and weight before takeoff. If rage is a hobby, set your feet to stop serving you loops that monetize your cortisol and replace one nightly scroll with 10 quiet pages you will implement by noon. You are not becoming fragile. You are becoming a steward. People who mock boundaries as weakness often want your energy to remain available to their mess. Let them rent someone else. You are busy paying the expenses of a life where you can recognize yourself in rooms you didn't plan. Justice sounds like a public virtue until you need it in private. Here it means the rules for your participation and the consequences that make those rules real. Kindness and clarity require each other. Without clarity, your kindness gets used against you. And without kindness, your clarity turns into cruelty, masquerading as strength. Justice is the ability to say what you mean without a raised voice, and to withdraw from patterns that punish your standards without burning the house down. It is delivering the terms early and enforcing them without theater when they get ignored. It is ending a conversation that uses silence as a weapon and reopening it only when both are ready to speak plainly. It is declining to join the committee that designs explanations for someone else's consistent neglect. It is telling the truth about your own misses and repairing them while the dent is small. The temptation is to wield justice as vengeance, because vengeance offers that hot, brief taste of balance. You can win the moment and forfeit your posture. A Stoic makes justice durable by emptying it of spectacle. You do not broadcast your boundaries to harvest approval. You live them until even your critics can predict them. You do not use punishment to manipulate adults into enthusiasm. You read their behavior and make selections that protect your dignity. You do not argue with someone's inner life. You require outer conduct you can verify. Where your standards are met, you bring warmth. Where they are not, you bring distance. In both cases, your tone stays level because you are not auditioning for a moral award. You are choosing where your character can breathe. Temperance and justice meet in appetite for conflict. Many people mistake silence for peace because it is quiet. In practice, it is a storage unit for resentment with a broken lock. Peace is the ability to resolve friction without weapons. Train this by keeping your tongue clean when heat rises. Clean does not mean soft or vague, it means specific and free of poisons, like sarcasm, insinuation, and old ledgers dragged in to win the room. Ask for what you need in simple language. Name what happened without adjectives. Request 1. Change you can both observe next week. If the other person reciprocates, you are in a civilization, build roads. If they insist on fog, you are in a swamp, lay boards or leave. The goal is not to defeat anyone. The goal is to protect the conditions under which honesty can live. None of this survives if you preach standards you do not keep. You cannot insist on punctuality and treat your own promises to yourself as suggestions. You cannot demand honesty and hide behind charm when it is your turn to speak hard truth. You cannot ask for sobriety in someone else's choices and then intoxicate yourself nightly with the same inputs that hollow your judgment. Symmetry is the force multiplier. When your private life rhymes with your public terms, people feel it immediately. They may argue with your boundaries. They rarely misread them. More important, your own nervous system relaxes because it no longer has to manage the stress of double accounting. There will be moments when abstaining looks like a loss. Friends call you rigid because you left early. Colleagues call you selfish because you protected the hour that funds your real work. Partners call you cold because you refuse to barter self-respect for comfort. Let the names pass through. What stays is the compound interest of evenings where you meet your eyes without explaining yourself. You will notice that your patience improves because you are not hung over on inputs, that your courage grows because you don't owe anyone the receipt for your exhaustion, that your generosity lifts because you give from surplus rather than from the guilt of saying no. Temperance makes justice possible because a clean mind can afford to be fair, and justice makes temperance sustainable because clear boundaries reduce the number of storms you must white-knuckle your way through. When you stumble, as you will, do not theatrically swear off the world. Repair the boundary you let slide and resume the ordinary program. The danger is not the drink or the scroll or the late night. It is the story that follows, the one that turns a single miss into a license to drift for a week. Refuse the story by doing one clean act in the next hour. Drink water, step outside, write a paragraph, apologize without qualification, sleep on time. The smallest correction performed now outruns the largest promise about tomorrow. You are not staging your redemption for an audience. You are preventing the need for one by not letting small errors swell into character traits. Carry forward a sentence that simplifies both virtues in one move. You are not hard to get, you are hard to misuse. Being hard to misuse requires temperance because you cannot be steered by appetites that sell you out. It requires justice because you cannot be cornered by people who benefit from your confusion. Speak it to yourself when the evening invites leaks and when the room tests your lines. Then make a choice your future self would sign. The world may not praise you for declining what everyone else consumes and for walking away from what everyone else tolerates, but your nights will. And nights are where strength remembers whether it belongs to you. Fear is persuasive because it arrives wearing data. It points to a time you failed, a person who laughed, a risk that is not imaginary, and then it quotes your pulse as expert testimony. The case feels airtight precisely when it is most biased, because fear selects only the evidence that justifies inaction. Courage is not the opposite of this process. Courage is a better process. It begins by refusing to let feelings finish voting before the motion hits the floor. Action is called to order, small and immediate, so that physiology can follow leadership rather than appointing itself the leader. You do not wait for confidence. You behave as if a fragment of confidence were already present, because behavior is the only language the nervous system respects. A single decisive move: compose the opening sentence and send it, dial the number and let it ring, step under the bar and lift the first set, rewrites the committee minutes. Momentum lowers the volume on prophecy. You are not gambling on fantasy, you are reclaiming cause and effect. The habit that defeats hesitation is embarrassingly plain. Give fear a smaller target by narrowing your first act until it is too small to argue with. Draft is smaller than perfect paragraph. Call is smaller than flawless pitch. 10 minutes is smaller than a complete overhaul. The mind rejects this because ego wants heroics. It can narrate later. Yet the smallest act is the only act that actually happens while adrenaline is still campaigning for delay. You are training speed, not spectacle. The rule is simple enough to survive loud rooms. Act before your feelings finish voting. Not irresponsibly, not recklessly, simply before anxiety finishes rehearsing its closing argument. Anxiety argues on infinite loop. Give it finite time. When the loop restarts, you will already be deeper into the work, and the content of your attention will have changed from imagined outcomes to present behaviors. Present behaviors are less terrifying because they are specific. Action alone is not sufficient. Some risks bite because you ran at them with your eyes closed and called that bravery. Foresight is the companion virtue that makes courage durable. It previews damage before you move, so your movements are intelligent. The Stoics called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, not to breed pessimism, but to retire surprise. Surprise is an amplifier. It takes ordinary adversity and turns it into melodrama. When you visualize obstacles cleanly, you remove their ability to humiliate you with novelty. You are not giving misfortune an invitation, you are building a map. On that map, the first storm is already penciled in, the alternate route is marked, the shelter is circled, and the supplies are packed. When the clouds arrive on schedule, you nod and walk. Run the rehearsal correctly, or it will curdle into rumination. You are not catastrophizing, you are designing. Name 3 concrete obstacles your plan will likely face and script the first response each one demands in the smallest executable terms. If a client ghosts, you schedule 2 follow-ups and then pivot to a list of alternate prospects you prepared yesterday. If a lift stalls, you reduce the load and protect the pattern rather than proving toughness to no one. If a partner pushes a boundary you already explained, you restate it once and then enforce the consequence you promised without venom. The rehearsal is not a movie, it is a checklist. End it by placing tools where your tired self will trip over them. Place the document open to the paragraph you must write. Place the shoes by the door with the laces loose enough to slide in. Place the script beside the phone so the words exist before nerves can erase them. The world rewards those who reduce fiction when it matters most. A proper premortem is harsher and kinder than hope. Before you launch, imagine the work failed 6 weeks from now and ask, without poetry, what killed it? Lack of clarity at the handoff. Deadlines that were really wishes. Feedback that arrived too late to matter. A bottleneck with no owner. Then correct for those causes today while the cost is small. Write the definition of done that would make a stranger nod. Put dates next to names and confirm them in writing. Shorten the feedback loop to the smallest interval that won't interrupt flow. Design relief valves where history shows you crack. This is not paranoia. It is respect for friction. Projects die less from malice than from ambiguity. You are not proving distrust by tightening terms. You are preventing resentment by making reality explicit. Courage also requires a cleaner relationship to embarrassment. Much of what you label fear is really fear of witnessing yourself look small in front of other people. If you grant that audience the right to rent space in your head at retail prices, you will avoid precisely the reps that would have made you formidable. A Stoic solves this not with slogans, but with standards. He measures himself against agreements he can keep. Did I take the smallest decisive step when it was due? Did I tell the truth when a lie would have protected me? Did I protect my standards when praise tried to buy them? Did I repair quickly when I missed? These questions shrink the gallery noise until it sounds like weather. Weather can be inconvenient. It cannot sit at your desk and type. It is worth saying aloud that courage is not merely public. Practice these in obscurity, and the public moments will feel like repetitions, not auditions. Practice also in mixed weather. Choose days when you feel average, not just the days dripping with resolve. You are training reliability under typical conditions because typical conditions make up almost all of your life. Anyone can be brave once. Your aim is to be brave on schedule. The body is a collaborator in this work. You can argue with fear at the level of ideas for hours, or you can adjust your physiology in minutes and return to motion. Breathe through the nose and lengthen the exhale until your pulse slows. Stand and take quick steps until your mind notices that the animal is not trapped. Touch something cold. Drink water. Basic inputs are not trivial, they are control surfaces. Many ambitions die because their owners try to outthink a nervous system they refuse to fuel. Fuel it, and it will let you behave like the person you say you are. Finally, match courage with selection. You do not owe every fear a duel. You owe your values a schedule. Courage without direction is excitement. Courage with direction is character. Say yes only where the risk buys you proximity to the person you intend to be. Say no where the risk exists only to appease an audience that forgets you tomorrow. Foresight clarifies this by extending the horizon. Imagine the scene after the scene. If the pitch lands, who do you become for the next year? If the room applauds, what maintenance does that new attention require? If the relationship deepens, what habits must you keep alive to remain proud of your role? If the answer exposes costs you cannot or will not pay, the brave move may be refusal. Declining what deforms you is not fear, it is stewardship. There will be mornings when the old loop reasserts itself. You will scroll and stall and narrate your way into paralysis. Do not write a confession. Do not redesign your life mid-spiral. Take the smallest decisive step that points back toward the line you drew when you were calm. Send the paragraph you owe. Book the meeting that scares you because the answer could be no. Walk for 10 minutes and then work for 10 more. Draft the boundary and place it in the world without theater. Courage is not an identity you put on with a speech. It is a habit embedded in how you handle the first hard minute. Pair it with foresight and you stop asking fate to be gentler. You become someone who meets it prepared. The proof you're doing this right is subtle. You feel less surprised. You feel less exhausted by days that used to dissolve you. You accumulate small wins that do not trend and yet stack into a posture you recognize. You may not be louder, but you are steadier. The work still stings. It stings inside the frame you chose. Fear still visits. It finds fewer chairs. You begin to trust yourself, not because you are invulnerable, but because you are consistently willing to move and consistently ready to absorb the cost of moving. That is the kind of courage the world hires when conditions turn, and the kind of foresight that keeps you from spending your life fixing preventable damage. Keep the law close, act before feelings finish voting, and preview the road before you drive it. The rest is repetition under weather. The horizon makes petty waves look small. Without it, every ripple feels like a storm, and every delay feels like destiny. Perspective is the art of recovering the horizon on ordinary days and under ugly weather. It is not mystical. It begins with the most brutal and liberating fact you will ever hold. You are going to die and you do not know when. This is not a threat. It is a solvent. It dissolves debts you never owed to strangers' expectations. It dissolves negotiations with moods that do not pay you back. It dissolves the fantasy that you can postpone the life you respect until the calendar finally apologizes. Mortality tightens the frame to the present hour, where character is actually built. You can love more directly when you remember that this conversation could be the last. You can work more cleanly when you remember that later may not arrive. You can forgive without ceremony when you remember that the ledger you keep will not be read at the end by any judge who matters. Memento mori does not make you morbid. It makes you precise. Precision grows stronger when you step above yourself and view your life as if you were watching from altitude. The view from above is not a trance, it is a rehearsal for humility. You picture your body as a small moving point on a map of neighborhoods, then a city, then a coastline, then a curve of the earth under weather that does not even know your name. Your grievances look thinner from there. The compliment you are hunting loses its jewelry. The person who disrespected you last week becomes another moving point with their own storms. The feeling is not nihilism, it is relief. You stop pretending that every preference is a principle and every inconvenience is an injustice. From altitude, values sharpen because there is finally enough distance to distinguish what is heavy from what is merely loud. You come back down with less appetite for theater and more appetite for the next right act under your feet. Acceptance is the posture that lets perspective cash out as behavior. It is not resignation. Resignation sags. Acceptance stands and nods at what is true, then asks what remains under governance. The world will never match your draft. People will not always reciprocate pace or tenderness. Markets will treat your craft like weather treats crops. Your body will betray plans on days you deserve better. Acceptance does not praise any of this. It allows reality to enter the room without argument, so you can make a plan that does not depend on fantasy. Amor fati is the hard version of this posture. You do not merely tolerate the path you did not order, you learn to cooperate with it, to find the angle where effort still moves the stone, to locate the skill that can only be trained under these conditions, to notice the door that exists only because this one is closed. Love is a strong word. You grow into it by trading drama for design every time fate insists on different terms. Perspective also rearranges conflict. When you speak as if the world ends, if you are not understood today, your tongue becomes a weapon, and your sleep turns into court. When you practice the long view, you choose words that would still make sense if this were the final version of you that the other person ever meets. You do not lie to look noble, and you do not scorch to look strong. You name facts, ask for the change you can verify, and leave the door propped open for good faith while quietly closing it against repetition. Nothing here requires a race. It requires a race standard that is enforced without theatrics, because you remember that memory will be the last thing you own when everything else is being taken from you. Memory is kinder to those who spoke plainly and refused to perform. Acceptance does not cancel ambition, it disciplines it. The goals still stand. The path to them becomes more honest. You build plans that survive indifference rather than depending on applause. You size your risks to the season you are in rather than to the fantasies you wish you occupied. You install redundancies because you have stopped taking personally the fragility of things. You do not postpone joy until the final metric flashes green. You scatter it through days that also contain friction because friction is not a moral failure. The quiet radicalism here is that you stop bargaining with fate for permission to be the person you respect. You act like him now in the middle of weather you did not choose. And then the weather, which rarely consults you, becomes less decisive in shaping your character. All of this can be rehearsed in a loop short enough to survive real life. Over the next 14 days, begin mornings by copying one tight sentence that puts you beneath the horizon you say you admire. Copying is not superstition. It is scaffolding for a mind that forgets under noise. After the ink dries, choose one act before noon that proves the sentence without any audience. It can be as small as a paragraph sent without perfectionism, the apology delivered without bargaining, the boundary enforced without heat, the phone exiled for the block that funds your craft. You are not trying to feel inspired. You are trying to place a stone that weight cannot move. Midday, pause long enough to perform a single inspection that keeps narrative on a leash. Name the loudest impression and label it for what it is, so it stops masquerading as fact. Ask whether the controllable inch has moved since morning and move it now if it has not. You do not need a retreat center for this. You need 2 minutes away from screens and one honest question about whether you are steering or being steered. The answer becomes the next act, not a speech. By night, record one urge that barked and the action you took instead. Keep the entry to a line so you cannot turn the ledger into another performance. If you broke your standard, write the smallest correction you will execute in the first 20 minutes tomorrow before your excuses wake up. Close the book and sleep like someone who intends to honor the plan without waiting for mood. Rotate your emphasis across the virtues so the program does not become a single muscle that leaves the others atrophied. Early in the week, tilt toward courage in how you initiate hard things. Midweek, tilt toward justice in how you keep promises and refuse to harvest validation from gossip. Let the weekend bear the weight of temperance so the body and mind remember you are not livestock for inputs that make you cheap tomorrow. Give wisdom the mornings because that is when you are still calm enough to change your mind if better facts appear. None of this requires slogans beyond the first sentence you copy. It requires noticing, choosing, and repeating under weather. Perspective will be tested by days that shrink your horizon to the size of a hospital room or a bank account. When those days arrive, give yourself permission to scale the loop down to the smallest form that still protects your posture. If the morning sentence is all you can manage, then let it be the anchor while you move from task to task like a man who knows he is temporary but intends to be faithful while he lasts. Acceptance does not require you to be cheerful about what is hard. It requires that you refuse to add self-betrayal on top of it. You can miss what you hope for and still behave in a way that you can sign. You can grieve without making grief your government. You can hurt without exporting that hurt as justification to abandon standards that took years to build. A final adjustment makes the practice humane. Be suspicious of grandeur. Grandeur loves speeches and punishments. Perspective prefers ordinary proof. It asks whether your attention went where you said it should, whether your appetites answered to you instead of the other way around, whether your words matched the shape of your values when nobody was clapping, whether you corrected quickly when you slipped rather than writing an origin story about your weakness. Acceptance keeps score in the same small currency. Did you act inside reality? Did you stop suing fate for doing its job? Did you love any person or piece of work with the directness that scarce time deserves? If you want a single sentence to carry out of this page and into the next unremarkable morning, carry this: love the path you can walk, and walk it clean. Love does not mean you will never trade paths if truth demands it. It means you stop spending your life fighting maps. Clean does not mean sterile or joyless. It means governed by standards strong enough to protect your peace when the world fails to cooperate. The horizon will not make your storms disappear. It will keep you from forgetting where the shore is while you row. And acceptance will keep your hands on the oars instead of on the courtroom door you were building in your head. Row like that for 14 days and the shape of your life will tilt. Keep rowing and people will call it luck. You will know it as perspective married to practice. Now, if any part of this message has been helpful to you, leave us your like and comment, helping the algorithm recommend it to someone who needs it at this time. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos. And if you look through the videos we've already uploaded, you're sure to find something to take with you. Have a good day.